The sound came before anyone could place it. Low, rhythmic, shaking the air above the farmhouse like a second heartbeat. Thwop, 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 thwop. The sound arrived before it could be identified, a low, rhythmic thrumming that vibrated through the very floorboards of the farmhouse, like a second, frantic heartbeat pulsing against the summer sky. It was a mechanical vibration, deep and insistent, rattling the antique wind chimes hanging on the front porch of my father's rural estate in Oak Haven, Indiana. Thwop, 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 thwop. Nearly 50 members of the Miller clan had gathered in the expansive back lot behind the main farmhouse. They stood with paper plates weighed down by potato salad and grilled meats, the mid-afternoon sun baking the backs of their necks, when, as if synchronized by an invisible conductor, every head snapped upward. The chatter died instantly. My sister, Clara, fumbled, her plate sliding helplessly into the tall grass, spilling coleslaw everywhere. My father, Silas, stood frozen, the bourbon in his plastic cup cascading over his fingers, his jaw slack in a rare, pathetic moment of genuine bewilderment. A sleek, crimson and white helicopter descended into the field with the casual, arrogant authority of a guest arriving at an event they had personally organized. The grass bent under the immense pressure of the downdraft, whipping the hemlines of the women's dresses. As the pilot's door swung outward, my daughter, Elena, stepped onto the grass with the poise of a seasoned professional. She was dressed in a crisp, olive-drab flight suit, her flight helmet tucked securely under her arm. She was 26 years old. She carried an air of stillness, a calm that felt as permanent and immovable as granite. But to understand the sheer weight of this moment, to understand why my father's face went from shock to a sickly, pale shade of gray, I need to pull you back 7 years. Welcome back to the archives of Hidden Family Legacies. I'm Eleanor, a 41-year-old accountant and a single mother based in the heart of Indianapolis. For over a decade, I have spent my life balancing ledgers, reconciling bank statements, and navigating the quiet, often invisible currents of familial betrayal. This is the story of how my father systematically dismantled my daughter's future and how she, in turn, engineered a path to success without ever asking for a handout or a blessing. Before we delve into the heart of this struggle, I want to take a brief moment to express my deepest gratitude for this community. If you have ever felt that someone else was trying to dictate your worth, or if you have ever watched someone attempt to stifle the potential of your child because they didn't think you were enough, you are in the right place. This channel is a sanctuary for those stories, a place where we honor resilience and celebrate the quiet, often overlooked power of outlasting those who underestimated us. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. It helps us keep these stories of reclamation and grit alive and growing. We are building something special here, a community of people who know the value of hard work, and I am so honored to have you as part of the journey. We post new, intense, and empowering stories every single week, so don't miss out on what we have planned for you. I have worked as a senior accountant at a mid-sized firm downtown for over a decade. My world is defined by absolute precision. I live for balanced columns, reconciled ledgers, and tax filings that are perfect down to the final cent. When my husband exited our lives when Elena was just 5, I didn't look for a grand escape or a fairy tale ending to save us. I stayed. We lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment on the edge of the city, a place where the radiator hissed like an angry cat every winter and the air conditioner rattled through the humid July nights, threatening to fall out of the window. I raised my daughter in that space with a consistent, rhythmic discipline that some of my relatives dared to call monotonous. They were wrong, of course. They couldn't see the architecture of the life I was building. The most vibrant part of our life was the savings account I launched the week after her father left. I was barely 20 at the time, terrified but determined. I committed to $200 a month, occasionally pushing it to $250 when overtime hours allowed, or $300 during the chaotic tax season when bonuses landed. For 14 years, I tracked those deposits with a spreadsheet pinned to the kitchen refrigerator, held up by a magnet shaped like a compass. While other mothers were busy with Pinterest boards for lavish birthday themes or elaborate summer vacations, I was tracking the geography of Elena's future. By the time Elena reached her 18th birthday, that account had climbed to $52,000. It wasn't a fortune, but it was a bridge. It was the cost of braces, the price of skipped vacations, and the reason I drove a car that lacked air conditioning for 3 straight summers, because the repair cost was equal to 3 months of savings. Every line on that spreadsheet represented a silent promise. It was the kind of vow you make in the stillness of a kitchen at midnight, knowing that no one is watching and, more importantly, knowing that no one will ever thank you for it. I was building a foundation. I was laying the bricks of her autonomy. But I made one fatal, agonizing mistake. 43 Dawsons stood in the open field behind my father's property in Lebanon, Ohio, paper plates in hand, sun on their necks, and every single one of them looked up at the same time. My sister Tessa dropped her plate of coleslaw straight into the grass. My father's bourbon sloshed over the rim of his solo cup, running brown down his wrist, and he didn't notice because his mouth was hanging open. A red and white helicopter settled into the backfield like it had an invitation, and when the pilot door swung open, my daughter Megan stepped out in a flight suit with her helmet tucked under her arm. She was 25 years old. She was calm as stone. But I need to take you back 7 years. Welcome back to Hidden Family Revenge. I'm Hadley, 40, accountant, single mom from Dayton, Ohio. This is how my father stole my daughter's future and how she built a better one without asking permission. If you've ever been told your kid isn't special enough, if you've ever watched someone else decide what your child deserves, stay with me, drop a comment, and subscribe. I've been an accountant at Morrison and Birch in Dayton for 9 years. Numbers are my language. Columns that balance. Ledgers that reconcile. Tax returns filed on time and correct to the penny. My ex-husband left when Megan was 4. No long story there. He left. I stayed. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment on Troy Street with brown carpet and a window unit that rattled every July, and I raised my daughter in that apartment with a regularity that some people mistook for boring. Here is what was not boring. The savings account I opened right after he walked out. Megan was 4. I was 19. $200 a month, sometimes $250 when overtime came through, occasionally $300 during tax season when the firm paid bonuses. 14 years of deposits. I kept a spreadsheet on the refrigerator, printed and updated every single month, tracking every dollar since 2005. Other moms had Pinterest boards for birthday parties and vacation plans. I had a savings tracker held up by a magnet shaped like Ohio. By the time Megan was 18, that account held $47,000. Not a fortune. Not nothing either. That was braces. And skipped vacations. And the year I drove a car with no air conditioning because the repair estimate was $600, and $600 was 3 months of deposits. Every line on that spreadsheet was a decision. A promise. The kind of promise you make in a quiet apartment when nobody is watching and nobody is going to thank you for it. There was one detail I hadn't thought about in years. A detail that would cost me everything. I was 19 when I opened that account, and the bank required a cosigner. My father Roy put his name on it. His name was still on it. I never removed it. I never thought I'd need to. Megan at 17 was a B+ student who never made the honor roll and never got called to the principal's office. Teachers wrote the same thing every year on her report cards. Megan is a pleasure to have in class. Pleasant. Cooperative. Invisible in the way that quiet kids become invisible when the loud ones take up all the oxygen. But here is what the report cards didn't capture. When Megan was 8, I took her to an air show at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, 20 minutes from our apartment. She stood at the fence line for 3 hours. Didn't ask for a hot dog. Didn't ask to leave. Didn't fidget. She watched the helicopters with a stillness that made the man next to us ask if she was okay. She was more than okay. She was memorizing. By 12, she had a poster of a UH-60 Blackhawk taped above her bed, 3 model helicopter kits built from scratch on her dresser, and a library card she used almost exclusively for aviation books. She never announced a dream. Never came downstairs and said, "Mom, I want to be a pilot." The way kids do in movies. Breathless and wide-eyed with background music swelling. She just collected information. flight manuals from used bookstores, YouTube videos of Army pilots talking through pre-flight checklists, a spiral notebook with sketches of instrument panels drawn in pencil, labeled in her small, neat handwriting. She never told me what she wanted to be. She just quietly became it. One library book at a time. One model kit at a time. One afternoon at the fence line at a time. And I watched. And I kept making deposits. My father, Roy Dawson, is 65 years old and has never once in his life asked a question when he could give an order instead. He retired from construction after 40 years as a foreman, which means he spent 4 decades telling men where to dig, what to pour, and when to stop. He lives in a farmhouse outside Lebanon, Ohio, with my mother Beatrice, who has perfected the art of standing behind him while saying nothing useful. Then there's my sister. Tessa is 44, twice divorced, and has spent her adult life borrowing money from our father while pretending she doesn't. She resents me. Always has. I'm the reliable one, the one who shows up, the one who pays her own bills, and Tessa treats that like a personal insult. Hadley was always the steady one, she told people at Thanksgiving once, smiling with her teeth. I got the personality. Her son Bryce was 19 that year. SAT score, 1520. Genuine talent. And Yale had accepted him. My father framed that acceptance letter and hung it on the wall of his den like it was a deed to new land. First Dawson to touch the Ivy League. But here is the math that nobody discussed at the celebration dinner. Yale tuition ran $85,000 a year. Bryce's financial aid covered roughly half. Tessa was broke, her second husband's alimony had dried up, and my father had burned through his retirement helping Tessa stay afloat for years. So Roy called a family meeting, drove down to Dayton to pick me up like it was a casual thing. Just need to talk about some family business, Hadley girl. When my dad says family meeting, someone's about to lose something. I just didn't know it would be me. 4 of us at the kitchen table in the farmhouse. Roy at the head, naturally. Beatrice to his right with her hands folded like she was in church. Tessa across from me, bouncing her knee, already defensive. The Yale acceptance letter sat in its frame at the center of the table, propped up like a piece of evidence at trial. Roy laid it out plain. Bryce needed $47,000 to cover the tuition gap for his first year. The family had to step up. Once in a lifetime opportunity, Roy said, tapping the table with his index finger the way he always did when he wanted you to understand he was not negotiating. I felt the number before he said it. 47,000. The exact balance in Megan's account. That's Megan's college fund, I said. I kept my voice even. Flat. The way I talk to clients at work when the IRS sends a letter and panic won't help. Roy didn't blink. Megan can go to community college. She's a good kid, but she's not Yale material. Bryce is. Tessa leaned forward with her elbows on the table. Bryce could change this family's name, Hadley. What's Megan gonna do with that money? Get her CPA? She said CPA, the way someone might say bus pass. Beatrice placed her hand on my arm. Gentle. Rehearsed. Your father knows best, sweetheart. He's thought about this. I looked at the 3 of them. My father who built things, my mother who stood behind him, and my sister who always needed more. The Yale letter gleamed under the kitchen light. My daughter's 14 years of deposits sat in a bank account 20 minutes away. I said no. Roy absorbed the word the way a foreman absorbs a delay, with a pause and a recalculation. He didn't raise his voice right away. He placed both palms flat on the table and pushed himself up to standing, and the chair scraped back across the linoleum with a sound that made Beatrice flinch. I saved that money for 14 years. I said, dollar by dollar, deposit by deposit, that is my daughter's future sitting in that account. He looked at me from the full height of his 6'1" frame, and his face was not angry. That was the worst part. It wasn't anger. It was certainty. The absolute bedrock conviction of a man who has decided something and cannot conceive of being wrong. Your girl will never need it. He said it the way you'd say the sky is blue. She's a sweet kid, Hadley, but she's average. Average kids don't need $47,000. They need a decent job and a husband who works. I heard Beatrice exhale behind me. A small breath. Almost a sigh. Agreement in the shape of air. Tessa was smiling. Not a cruel smile, not exactly. The smile of someone who believes they've already won and is waiting for the loser to catch up. I looked at my father, and I understood with perfect clarity that this was not a conversation. It had never been a conversation. It was a verdict delivered at a kitchen table in a farmhouse in Lebanon, Ohio, and the only role I was supposed to play was acceptance. I picked up my purse. This conversation is over. I drove back to Dayton doing exactly the speed limit, both hands on the wheel, jaw locked. I believed it was over. I was wrong by about 36 hours. 2 days later, I called the bank. I wanted Roy's name removed from the account. The woman on the phone was polite in that careful way bank employees get when they know they're about to ruin your morning. Both signers needed to be present. Earliest appointment. Tomorrow afternoon? 2:15, I said fine. I set a reminder on my phone. I went to bed thinking I'd handle it like I handled everything, methodically, on schedule, one step at a time. The next morning, I opened my banking app at 7:45 while the coffee brewed. I saw the number and set the phone on the counter the way you set down something fragile. Balance. $0.00. Roy had walked into the Lebanon branch at 9 a.m. the previous day and withdrawn $47,000 in cash. $47,000. He beat me by one business day. I called him. He picked up on the second ring, calm as Sunday. It's done, he said. Bryce starts in September. I hung up. I called Tessa. She answered laughing, already mid-sentence with someone in the background. You took my daughter's future, I said. There was a pause. Then Tessa said it, light and easy, the way someone swats a fly. Oh, relax, Hadley, some kids are just ordinary. She'll be fine. I stood in my kitchen holding the phone and staring at the spreadsheet on my refrigerator. Every line. Every month. $200 in January. $250 in March. $300 in December when the bonus came. 14 years of rows, and every one of them now equaled nothing. I heard the front door. Megan came in from school, dropped her backpack, and saw me at the kitchen table staring at the spreadsheet. She stood there for a long time. Mom, I'll figure it out. $47,000. 14 years of $200 deposits. Gone in one morning because a man who never saved a dime decided my daughter wasn't worth the investment. If you've ever watched someone else spend what you built, if you've ever been told your child doesn't measure up, you already know the fire that sits in your chest like a brick you can't swallow. Stay with me. This is where things start to change. I drove to the farmhouse that evening. Didn't call ahead. Roy was on the porch in his recliner with a glass of iced tea, and he looked up at me the way a man looks at weather he's already decided won't last. You stole from your own granddaughter, I said from the bottom of the porch steps. I didn't go up. Didn't cross the threshold. Roy set his tea down. I invested in the one who deserved it. That was my daughter's name on that spreadsheet. Every line. Every month. 14 years. Beatrice appeared behind the screen door. She was drying a dish with a checkered towel, and her face was arranged in the particular expression she uses when something uncomfortable is happening and she needs it to stop. Don't make a scene, Hadley. I'm not making a scene, Mom. I'm stating a fact. He took money that belonged to Megan and gave it to Tessa's son, and you stood there and watched. Beatrice went back inside. The screen door clapped shut. Roy picked up his tea again. I left. In the car, I hit the steering wheel once with the heel of my palm, hard enough to make it sting. Then I breathed. I drove home. I got on my laptop and searched how to remove cosigner from joint savings account, and then recourse for unauthorized withdrawal from joint account, and then family theft Ohio law. The lawyer I called the next morning told me what I already suspected but needed to hear from someone with a law degree. Joint account means both names have equal access. Roy's withdrawal was legal. There was no case. No crime. Just a man and a bank and a balance of zero. I closed the laptop and made dinner. That evening, I sat Megan down on the couch and told her everything. I used plain words because she deserved plain words. Grandpa took your college fund, all of it. He gave it to Aunt Tessa for Bryce's tuition at Yale. Megan sat with her hands between her knees and looked at for about 20 seconds. I know, Mom. You know. I heard you on the phone 2 days ago when you called Aunt Tessa. These walls aren't thick. 20 seconds of silence that felt like 20 minutes. I wanted to apologize. I wanted to promise I would fix it. I wanted to cry into my hands while my 17-year-old daughter watched and felt scared and uncertain, which is exactly why I didn't. I'm so sorry, baby. That money was yours. Megan looked up. Her eyes were dry, and there was something behind them I hadn't seen before. Something steady and clear, like a compass needle finding north. You saved for 14 years. That's not nothing, Mom. That's everything. But the money's gone. So I'll find another way. She didn't say it dramatically. She said it the way she said most things, quietly, with the weight in the words instead of the volume. Then she stood up, walked to the kitchen, turned on the faucet, and washed the dishes from dinner. When she finished, she dried her hands on the towel hanging from the oven door, said goodnight, and went to her room. I heard her desk chair roll across the floor. I heard typing, keys clicking steady and fast, the sound of someone who had already started solving a problem before the rest of us had finished naming it. She'd known for 2 days. She'd already been looking for another way before I found the words to tell her the first way was gone. September came, and Bryce Whitfield went to Yale. Roy threw a send-off party at the farmhouse, catered barbecue and a sheet cake with blue icing that read, Yale-bound. He invited cousins, uncles, aunts, neighbors, the pastor from Lebanon First Baptist. He did not invite me. He did not invite Megan. I found out from my cousin Donna, who called 2 days before. Are you coming Saturday? Linda's making her brisket. I wasn't invited, Donna. A long pause on the line. Oh, that was all she said. That Saturday, I cleaned my apartment and balanced my personal checking account while my family celebrated in a field with my daughter's money. Tessa posted on Facebook that evening a photo of Bryce standing at the Yale gate, grinning wide, wearing a Yale hoodie that probably cost $60. Her caption, First Ivy League Dawson. Dreams do come true when family invests in the right person. 41 likes. 12 comments. Heart emojis. Clapping hands. I sat on my couch and scrolled past it. Didn't comment. Didn't like. Didn't block. Blocking would have meant it mattered enough to take action. Megan walked through the living room, glanced at my phone screen over my shoulder, and stopped. She studied the photo for about 3 seconds. That's a nice gate, she said. Then she went upstairs. I almost laughed. Almost. The next Monday, I sent birthday cards to Roy and Beatrice, same as every year, because that was who I was, and I was not going to let them turn me into someone else. Megan started waking up at 5:30 in the morning. Running. Push-ups in her bedroom. Pull-ups on a bar she mounted in her closet doorframe. Just getting ready, she said when I asked. She didn't say for what. Over the next few months, I watched my daughter transform without explanation. She borrowed the library printer so often the librarian started leaving a stack of paper by the machine with Megan's name on a sticky note. Large envelopes appeared in the mailbox, addressed to Megan, from places I didn't recognize. She exercised every morning with a discipline that reminded me of nobody in our family. I asked once, carefully, the way you open a door when you're not sure who's on the other side. You applying somewhere? A few places. Community college? Something like that. She smiled when she said it, and I let it go because I knew my daughter and I knew that smile. It was the same smile she wore at the airshow fence when she was 8 years old, the one that meant she was already somewhere I couldn't follow. I didn't push. I cooked dinner. I went to work. I made my monthly deposit into the new savings account. One evening in November, I brought a glass of water to Megan's room and found her gone. The bathroom, the shower running. Her laptop was open on the desk. I did not mean to look. I looked. One browser tab glowed on the screen. Army ROTC scholarship. Full tuition plus monthly stipend plus guaranteed flight training slot. I read it twice. My hands went cold the way hands go cold when two opposite feelings hit you at the same time and your body doesn't know which one to process first. Half fear, half pride. Fear because the word army means your child in places you can't protect her. Pride because my daughter had found a door and was building the key herself. I closed the laptop gently. I went to the kitchen and I cooked dinner. If my daughter was building a door, I wasn't going to knock before she was ready. Thanksgiving at the farmhouse. I went because Beatrice begged and because avoiding your family forever is its own kind of prison. Dinner was tense in the way Midwest dinners are tense, which means everyone smiled and passed the gravy and nobody mentioned the $47,000 sitting in a Yale dormitory. Megan came with me and sat beside me and ate her turkey in silence. Bryce wasn't home midterms. After dessert, the women cleared dishes and the men went to the porch and I walked outside for air and found Roy alone on the far end, leaning on the railing, staring at the tree line like it owed him something. I should have gone back inside. I didn't. He spoke without turning. My old man told me I'd never be anything. I said nothing. Said Dawsons are born to dig ditches and die poor. Said he was a ditch digger and his daddy was a ditch digger, and the best I could hope for was a shovel that didn't break. He turned the glass in his hand. I just wanted one of us to prove him wrong. One Dawson who made it to a place where people use your last name with respect. Bryce was supposed to be the one. I stood there and I felt something I did not expect. I understood. Generational trauma is a chain, and every link is a man who was told he was nothing and decided to fix it by choosing which of his descendants was worth something. My father's cruelty had a source. It had a logic. It was the logic of a man who grew up being told he was worthless and responded by ranking everyone around him. I understood why he did it. I still couldn't forgive what it cost. He didn't apologize. He didn't mention Megan. Behind the screen door, Beatrice stood in the dark hallway with red eyes, listening to every